I'm talking about faces on some of these wheels breaking because they are not stress tested for the application. And these companies are doing things as cheap as possible to maximize profits.
Just clear. Are we talking about fake wheels or three-piece?
No, I'm talking about genuine three-piece wheels. And I'm not going to name any names because I would definitely upset some people if I listed some companies. And these are companies that have reputation. Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Substance Podcast. I'm your host, Liam.
And I'm your other host, Matt.
Today's episode, we're going to get into something that's super juicy, and I felt like this is the right time to do it. We had actually recorded an episode for this week about our backstories and kind of just a little bit of insight into who we are.
But we talked for a little bit too long.
It was very, very long.
Imagine that.
And we didn't even listen back to it. Just kind of after the podcast, we kind of just universally felt like, yo, that just wasn't good. And honestly, if an episode isn't something that we personally would listen to, we don't want to put it out. So I had to disappear off to South Carolina right after we recorded that episode. And so we're back now on a Monday recording and releasing this tonight. So it'll be out on Tuesday. But the regular schedule is that we'll put an episode out every Monday. This is just the exception. But moving on from that, the episode today is on rep wheels because there is so much demand for this to be an episode, and there is so much, I wouldn't even say open conversation about this, there is so much fighting about this topic just in the community, and it drives me nuts because there's so many different approaches to it. And basically for this episode, we're pretty much winging it. We didn't make notes. We're approaching this as unbiased as possible. I put out a statement on social media on my LEP account to basically say like, hey, if you want to join the conversation, please send me your perspective. And so I've had a bunch of people send me in their opinions, their perspective on the subject, and we're basically going to read some of those off, dive into a few of them, and at no point in this are we going to be like, this is how it is, which we'll give the disclaimer in a second. But yeah, we're opening this conversation up as unbiased as we possibly can and just kind of going into it and going over every aspect that we can think of. And if we miss anything, please do let us know. We're not at any point trying to, avoid things or just cut them out because we don't believe that they should exist or whatever. We're just, we're covering this in every aspect we can. So before we do that, how was Thanksgiving, Matt?
It was good. It was real good. I went down to Atlanta where all my family is. It was just great. I guess it was crazy because I hadn't really seen the majority of them since like 2019, I guess, basically, because I only ever really get to see them like at family gatherings for like Thanksgiving and Christmas and stuff. So it was pretty crazy that it had been that long since I've seen them.
Yeah.
I feel like some of my cousins just like, it doesn't seem like it was only 2 years. Like I felt like I like walked back in the room and they were like
adults.
A couple,
now.
Yeah, it's weird, super weird, but
yeah. I did not celebrate Thanksgiving. I actually flew to Myrtle Beach, and being a foreigner, I spent my Thanksgiving with other foreigners, hung out with a bunch of fucking Canadians in South Carolina, and we did nothing for Thanksgiving. Well, no, not that we didn't do anything. We just didn't celebrate Thanksgiving. It's not my holiday. So for everybody that asked me last week, hey, what are you doing for Thanksgiving? I was like, fuck, I don't know. So
going to Waffle House?
Yeah, dude, fucking normal day. But
I'm so sorry.
What?
I'm noticing myself doing it already. If y'all hear me yawning or going, I'm so sorry. But I'm at the precipice right now of that thing that I get every year when the weather changes drastically-ish.
Yeah. Dude, I came home and I was surprised that it's like 30 degrees here.
Yeah.
I thought it might be a little bit warmer. Dude, it was colder in Myrtle than I was expecting it to be.
Yeah, so I know other people struggle with this too, but like when the weather changes, like you'll have weird shit like that and then your voice will just go for like a week.
Do you want to get a glass of water before we start this?
It's probably better for them that I don't.
Do you don't?
Well, I guess maybe. Yeah, keep them entertained here for a second.
All right, you go get a glass of water. I will talk to these fellows.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
just eat shit as you fall out. All right, so as I said, I went down to South Carolina, so I was in Myrtle Beach for Slammed Enough this past weekend, and this actually ties into today's subject. It's a great place for us to start. So yeah, went down to South Carolina. I've been to Myrtle Beach before for other events. I know that it's a great city for car shows, but I know that it's gotten a little rougher over the years thanks to like the squatted truck shows and bike week and all of that stuff. So the police are a little bit stricter, but I saw some stuff from it last year. It looked like a good show. There's a ton of good spots to shoot in Myrtle. So I was excited to go down there, and I hung out with a bunch of guys from Canada. Shout out to Justin. I literally haven't seen him in basically exactly 2 years because the borders have been closed. Matt's trying to move the chair as quietly as possible. So it was nice to catch up with him, and then I met all the guys from Boost the North, which I'll get into, further on in the episode. But the show Slammed It Off Myrtle Beach. It's funny that this has happened a few times now. It's not just this show, but coincidentally, every time that there is a Slammed Enough show, there seems to be this controversy online afterwards where somebody at the show has gone out of their way to do something to point out flaws or things like rep wheels and stuff like that. And ironically, it seems to be a theme with it, but I won't go too much into that. I will just tell you from what I've heard, the guy that did this rep wheel tally at Slammed Enough Myrtle Beach was somebody who applied to the show, and then he showed up on stock wheels and got denied. So
wait,
I'll let you guys do with that as you will. Kind of explains a little bit as to maybe why he would go in there and make a list of all of the rep wheels because he got denied. I'm not saying anything on it. You can interpret that as you would like to, but yeah, to me that sheds a little bit of light on that. But anyways, today's subject is rep wheels. We're going to kind of go into, at least to start, I want to cover, definitions, because I think this plays into it a lot. There's a lot of different...
Wait a moment.
What?
We have to hit that disclaimer before we forget.
Hit that disclaimer real quick.
Ladies, gentlemen, on this podcast, Liam and I have many opinions, and we share all of them on this, our own podcast.
Correct.
If you ever find yourself thinking, man, these guys sure think highly of themselves and their opinions, you are incorrect. We do not do either of those things. Our opinions are not any more important or correct than your opinions. They are opinions.
Exactly.
Anyhow.
And the other thing to say with this episode is that unlike maybe some of the other episodes where we're talking about a subject and kind of giving our opinions and our take on it, this is an episode where beforehand I wanted to make sure that I got perspectives from everybody else because this is such a widely talked about topic. So yeah, I mean, it's been like maybe 24 hours since I put out a post to say, if you want to get involved with this, you want to contribute, send it over to me. And I've had a bunch of responses, granted not as many as I'm sure if I had this up for longer would have come in, but we needed to get this episode recorded and out, and this is the perfect time to do an episode on this topic because everybody is talking about it right now, and it seems like from both sides, or however many sides there are to this, everybody's upset, and this seems to be one of those things where you guys can't seem to have a dignified conversation about it without either attacking each other or just getting
resorting to fist fighting.
That or
I'm just kidding.
People just get angry and just be yelling shit back and forth or calling each other out for all this other shit because they're upset over something else and blah blah blah. And it's just y'all are children, and if you really want to make a difference to how the community is, you should sit down and talk like adults, which is exactly what we're trying to do with this episode.
You're on rep wheels. Yeah, well, I fucked your girlfriend. Wait, hold on.
I'm sure that is an argument that pops up many a times in the fucking car community. But no, the point of this episode for me is that I want to be able to open up this conversation like we do for every other episode, and not necessarily come to a point or some kind of summary where we can all universally agree that this is what we should think about rep wheels or this is how we should approach this subject. I really just want to lay out everything that we can and let you guys just listen to all of it and build your own views off of that. And I think that starting off with talking about kind of the definitions of what you consider a rep wheel, or what, different things around that, then it gives a better basis for when we talk about, how people approach these things and how they feel about it, understanding what makes sense from each perspective. And I would say the best place to start is, what is a rep wheel? What do we think a rep wheel is? And I've had a lot of people send in messages to what they think it is. I'm going to give you a rough kind of description as to what I consider a rep wheel. And that for me is a wheel that is a replica of something else. And I should also point out there is this negative connotation with the word rep wheel. Because people associate it with a lot of other things, and I'll dive into that in a second. But loosely description, just rep wheel. It's a replica of another wheel, and great place to start. The wheel that I have behind me is my VIP modular VXS 610. I've had a few people call this a rep, saying that it is a replica of the Mercedes Alfred's wheel, which is like an OEM style wheel. I don't remember what car it came on exactly. It's a really cool wheel.
It was like one of the V8 coupes.
It's a really, really cool looking wheel though. And I could totally see where they would get that perspective. But yes, I could say that it's loosely based on it, but if you look at them side by side, they're not even remotely similar. To start, like this has circular holes on it. The other one is a completely different shape. This has teardrops, and it's a 3-piece wheel. They're very, very different. And to say that this is a rep of that is not necessarily true, at least in my eyes, just because a rep would be something that's a direct copy. Mm-hmm. For example, if you take the original Ford GT40, a kit car is a rep. It's a replica of the original car. You can just build it for way cheaper. That is not what this is. This wheel is not a replica of that Mercedes wheel. It's inspired by it. Maybe. I don't know that for a fact.
I would imagine so.
Right. And that is a very good point, because there are so many wheels out there that are inspired by other wheels.
Well, it's like, and you can't avoid that. You know what I mean? Like after this many years of wheel manufacturers trying to come out with original designs. I mean, it's just like any other art medium at this point. It's like, especially with the internet now.
Right.
People may agree or people may disagree with me, but in my experience, nothing is original. Somebody
Absolutely.
somewhere has thought and or executed whatever it is that you're thinking about. Does that make it any less cool when you come up with it? No.
Not necessarily,
but the odds are it's pre-existing,
yeah.
right? But I mean, I would definitely say that wheels, just as they are today, it's very hard to come up with a wheel that is not in some way, even pretty, like, obviously.
That's a fairly unique looking wheel, right?
Yeah. So,
but somebody's still going to say, "Hey, it looks like this wheel," and you cannot reinvent the wheel. The wheel has been invented, and there's, take a 5-spoke wheel, for example, right? There is only so many things you can do with 5 spokes until they all look very similar. And so I think that there is a fine line between inspired by and replica. And, there's plenty of companies out there that just straight up rip off other companies' designs and they sell it. And that, for me, that is where the negative connotation comes from. So if we're talking about a rep wheel with a negative connotation, that's where I would associate it with. It's a wheel that is a exact replica of something original. Take a BBS, for example. They have made a mesh wheel that looks exactly like a BBS, put their own brand on it. It's made considerably cheaper. It probably isn't a 3-piece wheel. It has fake glued on hardware. That is a rep wheel with negative connotation. A replica wheel could still be a high quality 3-piece, forged wheel that is a replica of an original wheel that is now discontinued. But if my biggest thing with that, and the difference between like a negative connotation rep wheel and a positive connotation, is that one of them isn't trying to pretend to be something that it isn't. The negative connotation one is usually a wheel or a wheel company that is making a wheel that is trying to be the original wheel without having the same quality, without having the same consideration for design, and it is just straight up a rip-off to maximize profits. They make it as cheaply as possible and sell to the masses. A positive connotation replica wheel, for me, could be a three-piece construction forged wheel that, is based on a wheel that has been discontinued for however long, and they're essentially bringing it back. And I think that there's gray areas in that, because some people would argue that that sucks that they're taking a wheel from however long ago. As
far as gray areas go, one thing that I've been thinking about kind of since we started talking about this earlier today in regards to reps is it's one of the biggest gray areas, I think, is as you go further back in time.
Yeah.
Because the one that immediately pops into my head is the Enki Classics line. Mm-hmm. They're Enkis. So they're real wheels.
Yep.
They're cool. They're cool in my book, right? But the one that a lot of people would be like, oh, it's kind of like a Watt. Well, it's actually like a Panasport. Mm-hmm. That is literally the Panasport rally wheel.
Yeah.
But it's an Enki, so it's not, they didn't cheap out on it.
Right.
But by definition, that's a rep.
Right. But that's why I say there's the difference between positive and negative.
I would argue that is the positive. Exactly. Right. But for me, that's kind of that was an older thing. Yeah. So, it's kind of one thing that you were talking about earlier today is what was it? The Meisters, right?
Yes. SSR professors. Yeah. Was it professors?
No.
Well, there's an SSR wheel that's almost identical to the work wheel.
I can't remember what they're called. I used to have a friend with an Evo that had one.
The 5-spoke work emotion. It is an emotion. No, Workmeister, sorry, not emotion. Workmeisters that everybody knows. It's such a traditionally just well-known, good-looking wheel that everybody in the import scene knows this wheel. I'm pretty sure SSR did it first.
Basically, they did the basic design. It's that's kind of that gray area,
right? It's not a fucking rep. It's still a high quality wheel.
SSR and Work,
right,
are both very legitimate, highly respected companies.
Exactly,
making wheels.
But I guarantee there's tons of little differences between them. I know that they're not stupid enough to make an exact replica.
And see, that's the other thing that I was kind of also thinking. I'm kind of pinging around, but
yeah,
that was one of the things that I was also thinking about, just kind of as an aside when you were making the point about how not only are they cheaping out on materials, a lot of things that people that I didn't even realize for the longest time is take the BBS meshes, for instance, right?
Like an RS, you saying?
Yeah, an RS. Those wheels are engineered. That sounds weird.
Oh, yeah.
But
well, a lot of them are magnesium.
Yeah, the size of the spokes ultimately connecting it's not the waffle, I forgot. They actually call a certain part of that. But the mesh, the heaviest mesh part of the wheel towards the middle, mm-hmm. all of the little spokes that actually connect that to the wheel, they are the size that they are for a reason.
Right.
So it's the people that make these wheels that are reps of that for cheaper do not pay attention to shit like that.
Specifically on those, that's definitely where a question of quality would come in on any kind of BBS RS rep for me, because that's a wheel you look at and you can't even call them spokes, but I guess the spokes that are within the mesh, they're very small. Mm-hmm. And if that is not made to the highest of standards, I feel I wouldn't trust that.
Exactly.
But we'll get more onto the quality side of things, but going back to the positive and negative connotation thing, and I think that this is where the term fake wheels comes into this, and why fake wheels probably makes more sense to how a lot of people interpret this as opposed to the term rep wheels, because I think rep wheels has different definitions based off of who it is that is talking about it, and fake wheels, I feel we can all come to agreement that fake wheels are just non-authentic wheels, whether they're a straight rip-off or they are a wheel that is one piece in construction pretending to be a three-piece wheel. Like all of these come together under this negative connotation thing for the term fake wheels. And so just to start off, like right from the jump, I think that we can throw out the term rep wheels or replica wheels, just because there is two ways that you can go with that. There's two ways that it can be interpreted. And if we basically take, the negative connotation, which is what we want to talk about in this episode, and just associate that with fake wheels. So for the rest of the episode, we are going to talk about reps being fake wheels instead of reps. And where do we go from here? I guess I can talk about some of the things that people have sent in.
So, I'm gonna say this. So, it is very likely that you're gonna hear Liam talking a lot more than me in this episode, and I'll tell you why. I am going to be on the side of the people that are perpetually broke like I am. So, I have never owned a set of 3-piece wheels in my entire time that I've been doing this. Not for lack of wanting to, but for lack of having the resources to make it happen. However, that's not an excuse.
No.
At least for me, that's not an excuse.
But I'm glad that we have these two different perspectives, because this probably would be a fairly biased podcast if both of us on here were, people who owned 3-piece wheels and were fucking elitists about this shit.
Right.
Like, it's good that we both have this different perspective on it and we can approach the subject with no bias. And obviously, you guys know I have owned 3-piece wheels.
Bias, but
right,
it's balanced.
Right, yeah, okay, yeah, it's balanced. That's probably a better way to put it. And the other thing that I do want to disclaim about this episode is that there may be some people on here that are listening and they have the background of people who actually use their cars. And I just want to point out that we are very much talking from the perspective of show cars from this episode. Cars that are built to be aesthetically pleasing and they go to car shows. We are talking from that perspective only. We can touch on, drift cars, track cars, all of that stuff. But for the sake of this podcast, we are talking about how rep wheels or fake wheels, as we can put it, correlates with show cars and how it is perceived. And so, I'm going to start off. I've basically, like I said, put out a statement and told people, like, if you want to contribute, then
Liam put out an official statement.
Official statement. Nah, it ain't anything that serious.
Fuck your life. Bing bang.
I told you the Side Talk NYC things were coming. They're here.
Hold up. So real quick.
Yes.
Real quick. So Side Talk is not like new, right? It's not like brand new.
No, Side Talk's been around for a minute. Why?
So
it just blew up.
I was gonna. So it did just blow up because
Yeah.
I felt like I've been hearing about it everywhere.
Dude, they were doing it at the show. Fucking Eli was on the mic. He would yell "Bing Bong," and everybody in the crowd would yell "Fuck your life."
Okay.
So it's a mainstream thing now.
Gotcha.
So hey, we got the relatable sound
because
effects.
I was like,
here, check this one out.
we're hip.
You want to tell Joe Biden right now?
What's up, baby? Take me out to dinner.
Hey, yep.
I will give $5 to anybody
That can replicate that
that can replicate
dinner.
the way that man says dinner.
It's fantastic. All right, so the place that I want to start, and this is not something that somebody sent to me. This is a comment that I've seen on a social post, and for me, it summarizes how I feel. And the only reason I want to start here is because then, it gives you guys the perspective of where I'm at with this, and then we can dive into every other part of this deep dive. So this is a comment from somebody on a Facebook post about the rep wheels counter thing that happened at Myrtle Beach. And it says, it's hard to support this point of view. And he was talking in perspective to someone sharing the wheel count and getting upset about it. He said, there are other shows like Weekfest or Stance Nation which host nothing but quality events with show-worthy cars. Shit, if you're on reps, they won't even review your application or you'll be turned away at the event. The fact that people are settling and accepting that having reps at a show is acceptable is just harmful to the scene and encourages the stupid mindset of respectable builds and mediocrity. Having half-ass cars at shows is disrespectful to the people who put in the time and money to build a quality show-worthy car. The kid doing the rep tally is a clown for sure, but we shouldn't be so openly accepting of low-tier cars at a higher-tier show. And The reason that I say that this kind of encompasses my views, I only say that somewhat because there's obviously allowances and stuff and different things that you can dive off of that statement. The reason that I say that this encompasses my views is because I agree with it being harmful. That, allowing this stuff to happen as much as it does and just like accepting lower tier cars is harmful to, how we perceive show cars. And for me, the point of a show car is that you have something to show. Mm-hmm. If you've done the bare minimum, like we've said in the other episode where we talked about clout, if you've done the bare minimum and expect to get the same kind of respect as people that do tons of work in their car,
it's nonsense.
Yeah, no, it's unfair, and as he put, it's disrespectful to people who put in the time and money. Mm-hmm. And so the reason that I say I only slightly agree with this statement is that because he's comparing it to Weekfest and Stance Nation, which are pretty elitist shows, and I don't want you to take that negatively, but those are shows that they host, a couple times a year, mm-hmm. and they have a huge reputation for having extremely high tier cars there. Mm-hmm. And so of course, they have the option to turn away cars that are not up to the par.
Right.
They can do that because they have, more demand because they have less shows. In comparison, Slammed Enough does, I don't know exactly, but they probably do 15 shows a year. I mean, it could be 12. Maybe it's once a month. We'll just say it's once a month. Slammed Enough does a show. They probably don't have quite as much demand, and so they don't have the option to turn away every single car. They have to have mm-hmm. filler cars at every show because they need to fill their venue and they need to make their money. It's a business at the end of the day, and I get that. And I feel like maybe this person that, posted this comment is considering Slammed Enough a higher tier show than it actually is. And from my perspective, Slammed Enough has always been one of those shows that's pretty inclusive of a lot of people, and it's more of an experience. You go there, there's not the nicest of cars, but it's good people.
Yeah.
Whereas, you go to Tunarivo, Weekfest, Stance Nation, and I'm not calling any of these shows out, but these are shows that I go to, and I'm going to look at really, really nice cars. Mm-hmm. And you get less of the experience or less, you get a lot more people at those shows that, this kind of sounds bad, but they're elitists. They're maybe less likely to socialize with people or talk about cars because, they're on their pedestal. And that's only some people. I don't want to make that sounds really bad. But Slammed Enough for me has always been one of those shows that I go to because I really enjoy hanging out with people, and just, it doesn't matter what you have or blah, blah, blah. Of course there's a standard somewhat, but it's an experience. It's a good time.
Yeah. Whereas
the other shows are it's a competitive environment. These are super high-end cars. It's more so focused on the cars. Mm-hmm. And so I think that there's a little bit of an acceptance for this where there's going to be filler cars at these shows because they do so many of them.
Oh, yeah.
And there's just, from a business perspective, there's no way that they can do that.
It only makes sense, really.
Right. If Weekfest was doing a tour where they're doing 12 shows a year, you'd see
the same thing.
You'd see a drop in quality. It would just happen. And Riverside is a good example. They do one show a year. Sure enough, they have some of the best quality cars ever at that show because it's one time a year. They have that demand. People know that it's the only time they can go to that show. And so, yeah, I think that he makes a good point on, lowering the quality of cars and accepting people is harmful, but it depends on the show for sure. And if you're one of those people that is, more competitive, or, you want to be on a higher pedestal, then maybe it's not the show for you. But if you're a person who enjoys going to shows and hanging out with people, Slam Enough is a great show for that.
Well, and, it's bringing up Riverside. Shout out Mason Gavin. Bringing up Riverside is actually, I want to say something in relation to that, is Riverside in more ways.
I didn't want to put it off that Riverside's one of those elitist shows because it's one of the most accepting shows ever.
Riverside,
in case that came across.
I know it's mine, and I'm pretty sure it's Liam's favorite show.
It is
every year. So
it is.
there's that. But so my thing is, and this, this is me from my perspective. I'm not the ones who run these shows and own the companies that do these shows that's looking at like how much money I could make, regardless of what like my overall intentions are about how my shows are going to affect the community.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? But what I will say is, as you said, because Riverside is once a year and Mason and team have a very specific vision in mind for what they want it to be, and he sticks very stubbornly to that vision with good reason. And obviously we all see the results every year, right? So the thing about that is if you are the one putting on these shows, like, I want you to be successful. I want everybody to succeed.
We want everybody to be
right?
successful. But
I want you to be successful, but like, for me, it would be a good idea to evaluate every so often
absolutely
at what point this is just turning into a cash grab.
Right.
Because it's like...
And we're not trying to say that that's what Slammed Enough
No.
is. This is very much
Let's
topic.
clarify something right now. We're talking in a very generic, nameless company sense right now.
Right.
My point is that if you are a part of this community and you put on shows, great. You are giving all of us a place to get together and do our thing.
Absolutely.
In that regard, I'm a fan, right? But being in charge of that, you have a responsibility to a few things, a few very concrete things. First of all, you at that point are like putting out the word that you want people to gather that do this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Cars can be loud, cars can drift, cars can do burnouts, cars can have audio. Cars have a lot of shit that can be very obnoxious and sometimes destructive.
Yeah.
You are advertising to get a group of people in cars to come to one area. You are now responsible for what happens in that area.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing, right? Sorry.
I'm
not doing it. I'm putting my hands
better not start tapping the desk again, man.
I'm putting my hands behind my back. So you have that responsibility from the jump if you're doing a meet, right? But then the other thing is, if you go into it and this is not a cash grab for you and you legitimately want to contribute something to the community, you put on your first show and it goes really well, fuck yeah, build on that. Right? And keep going. And let's say you have more success and you're like, well, I want to do this twice a year. Do your thing.
Right.
Keep going. Right? But when you get to a point after like 2, maybe 3 shows a year, again, I want you to succeed, but if it was me, I would be evaluating at every new step at what point not only is quality going to suffer,
absolutely,
but at what point am I like, all right.
Right.
I mean,
there can
something
be...
is going to suffer here. Either my wallet or the quality and ultimately like positivity of what I'm contributing.
Right.
I have to make the decision which one it's going to be.
I absolutely agree with that. I think that you need to, as an event, like somebody who hosts events, that's something you need to be paying attention to massively. If every time you're hosting an event, you're seeing a drop in quality, there's something to look at there and be like, okay, maybe we need to cut back the amount of events that we're doing so that it creates more demand and we can ask for a higher tier car.
That's exactly. Well, that's the other thing that I didn't even think about until you just said that is ultimately the less events you have, the more exponential your growth can possibly be, because like the less you have, the more exclusive it ultimately becomes.
And there has to be if your event like Slammed Enough is an event that's more about the experience, there has to be obviously be a good balance between it becoming an elitist event where there's so much demand to be a part of this show and being something that just drops off in quality because there's so many of them.
Right.
And so, like, as the show owner, it's up to you to figure that out and evaluate, each time that you have an event and be like, okay, we've seen, less quality cars, maybe we cut back and do less events, or maybe we don't do an event in this city or whatever. And that's up to them. But I think this kind of brings up the quality versus quantity thing. It's doing that many shows a year. This is going to happen. There's going to be that drop in quality. And I think that certain cars attract certain demographics.
Oh, yes.
If the quality drops, who do you think you're attracting?
Mm-hmm.
If say I'm somebody who has a $100,000 car that's really amazing and I have 100,000 Instagram followers, blah blah blah. Do you think I'm going to want to go to a show that has lower quality stuff, or do you think I'm going to go to only the shows that have the best cars? I'm not saying that that's who I am or that you should attract those people, but I'm saying that if you have really high quality cars at a show, who do you think you're going to attract? You're going to attract people with high quality cars, or you're also going to attract people that aspire to have higher quality cars. And that, from a community standpoint, is so important to me. And that's where the comment on it being harmful hits me, because by attracting people who have higher quality cars, or by inspiring people to eventually get to that point where they have a high enough quality car, that's where we're positively improving the community. We are literally taking, kids that come to the first show, they see all of these cars, and 2 or 3 years later, they're then the people that are in the show. That is where you are helping to improve the community, and that for me is one of the most important things about hosting an event, is what you're doing to grow the community. Any event is creating a space for people to come and hang out and enjoy their passion. But if it's not like long-term goals, if it's not, helping to grow, it's helping to improve people and people want to aspire for better, then, what are you really contributing?
So I just had like a really like meta thought about a pitfall, right? When you said that. Mm-hmm. So you're saying that like as quality goes down, you are attracting a different type of demographic, right?
Yes.
Well, the demographic that I think we both think about when you say that, there's a lot more people in that demographic than there is in the higher quality cars demographic. That demographic is giving you money.
Yes.
So all of a sudden, you have even more motivation to just kind of like let that slide, because that's more money in your pocket, right? But here's the thing, that for me, I think that this is something to, for me as a person, if I decided to strike out on a journey to be an event organizer, have a company that has a consistent stream of events, or one event a year, whatever.
Yeah.
Ideally, I'm going to sit down at the very beginning and decide what my purpose is. And I'm going to make sure that I have conviction for that. Because
any business, you got to have a mission statement.
Right. But here's the thing, as far as meats, is just like Mason does with Riverside, you have to take it and you have to stay with it.
Yes.
Because you're going to get to a point, if you're succeeding, rolling back to what I just talked about, if you're having more events, because it makes you more money and the quality goes down, in a weird way, it's because you're attracting that demographic, that there's a lot more of that demographic than there are that take this really seriously. Mm-hmm. That's even more money.
Right.
So at that point, again, you arrive at, do I care more about the money, or do I care more about improving the community that I'm in?
Right. And I mean, this is a moral debate with any kind of business that you start that involves a community, is that, what is it you're trying to do with that business, and, what are your priorities? And I think for something that's the best of both worlds, you just have to have a balance. I think that there is a very good balance in doing however many shows a year, still attracting that demographic to come out and spectate and hopefully, inspire them to build cars that are of a higher standard. But I think that, just like letting certain things slide and being okay, like the comment said, with mediocrity, is damaging to the scene. I think that it lets too many things, it allows people to be too comfortable with things and accepting of it, that it's just like, okay, this is the standard, I don't have to work as hard. And then all of a sudden, the general high quality that, you used to expect from a show car, it drops, because then there's no incentive to build a really high-end car if you'll get the exact same gratification that you would for building something that's half-assed.
Yeah, no, I agree completely.
And anyway, we don't need to talk too much on
a long password.
I know. We've talked quite a bit.
I was going to say
about shows. We should get back to the
really
subject
interesting way to pronounce rep wheels.
Yeah, and just want to clarify, none of that was us saying that anything specific about Slammed Enough. I've known the guys for years. I've been to the majority of their events. I do very much enjoy their events.
Oh, I second that. It's kind of exactly what you said. I'll be honest with you. I don't know if this is what Slammed Enough wants to hear or not, but when I think about Slammed Enough, all I think about is hanging out with my friends.
Right, exactly.
That I've met through cars.
And
I have a great
honestly,
time every single time.
If that's their mission statement, they hit
Then
that.
they're winning, yeah.
But of course, as any business owner, it's always valuable to analyze what's going on, and if there is something that is happening that's controversial around the event, that's a great point to kind of figure out, okay, what do people want to see? What do we need to change? What are we doing that's good? Blah, blah, blah. And so I don't want anybody to take this as us saying anything negative about Slammed Enough. This has kind of just been a point of contention where something happened, it involved Slammed Enough, and it was the perfect excuse for us to jump on this topic and talk about it. This could apply to many events. So yeah, I just wanted to put that out there because I love the guys at Slammed Enough. I think that they're awesome. But anyways, let's get back to rep wheels and less. I mean, the events thing is important because I think that
whoever it was that texted Liam that said we should allow ourselves a little bit more tangents, this is your fault.
Oh yes, somebody replied to a story and were like, hey, where you got to that point where you're like, hey, we're getting off topic, just let it slide, just talk, because that's the point of a podcast, and that's what we're trying to do this episode. We want to we have things to hit. But we're just letting it flow.
I would argue that was a.
Oh yeah, no.
That was. I mean, even though it was off track, it was a good path to go down.
I think everything that we just said was a fantastic message for somebody who's on the fence about rep wheels or fake wheels. I honestly do. Anybody in the community, whether you're an event owner or not, I think everything we just said was good, valuable shit.
Man, maybe we really are self-employed. I'm just kidding. Please don't clip that.
No, we are just spitting stuff off, and hopefully some of it resonates with you guys.
Off the dome, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, I mean, because
off the dome.
What I want to do with this podcast is just open these conversations, get more people involved, get people thinking differently, and like we say every episode, perspective. The more open you are to different perspectives, the more that you can learn and evolve as a person. Mm-hmm. And so that's really key with all of this.
Quick reminder. This entire episode is going to be me and Liam kind of launching into stuff that you guys have pointed out or that you guys have shared with us as a response to Liam
right.
asking for your perspectives about this. So
okay, so the next thing that I have here is somebody saying that spending $1,300 on XXRs, sorry to call out the brand, but also fuck XXR. Spending $1,300 on XXRs to save their money when they could have saved for 3 more months or even less than that. Spent 20.
Is that how much XXRs are?
Oh, dead ass. Yeah, I don't know 100%.
Dude, when I got into this, I had never seen a set of XXRs for more than $900. I almost want to say
maybe they're around there. We'll just go with $1,000. Say a brand new set of rep or fake wheels is $1,000. This person is saying that why wouldn't you just save that little bit longer and for $2,200 or $2,000, you can very easily find a nice set of old JDM 3-piece wheels that could be in whatever specs you desire.
Right.
And that's totally valid. Why wouldn't you? And the other thing that I would like to throw into that, which me and Matt both agree on, is if you're in a position where you don't have the money to buy the 3-piece wheel or whatever it is that you want, instead of buying the wheel that is gonna basically drop in value the moment you buy it because nobody wants it, why wouldn't you just go and buy a really cool looking OEM wheel? Yeah. And do that. If your car has stocks on it.
If you are somebody that's often really broke like I am, here's that part that I was telling y'all about, that I'm out of the two of us, I've been in a situation more where I've had to make do with what I've had, and personally I think I've done a pretty good job. But on my RSX, I was running, granted I was a noob, so yes, they were plastic dipped, fuck off, but I was running.
This is years ago, by the way.
I was running the plastic dip stocked wheels. I was running the stock wheels.
Somebody's going to clip this and be like, I don't care what you have to say. You had plastic dip wheels.
You're invalidated.
Shut the fuck up. We all had plastic dip something at some point.
Yeah, so we all do the noob thing. And if you don't you are either lying or you got very lucky and you have friends that have already been around this for a while.
I was going to say, I never had that thing because I've worked around cars for such a long time that I was very researched by the time I actually bought a project car.
Oh,
I know. Well, I just got lucky with that.
So the point that I'm trying to make is that before I got a chance to get my first set of aftermarket wheels on that car, I had the stock wheels, plastic dip black, and I spent like, I think it ended up being like $75 overall for a set of spacers that I did the math to see what would look good. It just made it look
way better.
And it looked fine. Like, I was cool with it. The car was already lowered, but I couldn't afford the wheels at the time. They're OEM wheels. They're not going to break. I'm tapping the table again.
God damn it.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And it's like, throughout the time that I was running those wheels, do they look exactly how I want the car to look?
No.
Definitely not. But
this goes out to anybody who is in that position where you don't have the money to, create exactly what you want and you're kind of just making do with what you have. There are options. You don't have to fall victim to these companies that are literally just taking advantage of you because you don't know any better. There's no reason for you to go and buy one of these wheels. And honestly, the reason that this thing has become such a big problem and like this topic is such a thing is because it's been so normalized for at least for the past year or so, people have been so protective of allowing people to buy shitty quality stuff. That more and more people buy it, and these companies know, and they take advantage, and they pump more money into ads and pump more money into mass producing this stuff, and more kids buy it, and the
cycle just continues on out of control.
I will tell you guys right now, these companies are actively taking advantage of you. You people sharing this and being like, "Oh, dude, just let people buy whatever they want." Yes, let people buy whatever they want. But you promoting that having a fake wheel or a wheel that is of lower quality or is a stolen design is okay because they don't have enough money is super toxic, because these companies are profiting like fucking crazy and they couldn't care less about the community or the industry. They literally know the easiest and cheapest way to mass produce wheels, sell them to people that don't know any better, and they profit like fucking crazy. They do nothing for the community.
These wheel companies are legitimate money-making, large-scale money-making forms of repos pages. Basically.
Oh yeah, essentially.
That's like a super weird circle back, but like it's the same thing. They are simply using the numbers to be like, this demographic of people will go for this without question, right? Because they don't know any better, and they do. And the people that we're talking about that will fight tooth and nail about how like it's totally okay to have reps and this and that, like for us, as you can see, no, man, reps are not okay. There, you have other options.
We have
that
to say
are
fake
not,
wheels because
sorry, fake, correct.
Yeah, fake wheels.
Fake wheels are not okay because the thing about it is, you have other options.
Yes, you
do. And if you can't think or don't believe us about any of the other ones, default to other OEM options.
Exactly.
Give me any car manufacturer. I'm talking about any of them. You might have to give me like 20 minutes on the internet. But you give me any car manufacturer.
You can find a cool looking wheel.
And you can find at least one cool wheel that they have made from the factory.
This is a great point for me is if you're in that position where you're making do with what you can, if you have $1,000 to spend on the fake wheels, think about what else that $1,000 could get you. Whether it's something else on your car, like we've said in another episode, like if you focused on, cleaning something else up or doing something cool with something else, or just thinking about wheels specifically, what can that $1,000 get you? And I think it takes somebody to just think outside the box enough and just think creatively. That $1,000 could buy you probably any other OEM wheel from another manufacturer that could be the same bolt pattern, could be a different bolt pattern that you could make fit, and it will look so much better than if you went out and bought something that literally anybody who has half a brain cell can go on whatever website and order these fake wheels and just throw it on. I respect something that's so much more. If you put thought into throwing a cool OEM wheel on. That's so much cooler than just
Dude,
buying an
and
off-the-shelf wheel.
Some of these OEM wheels too, like one thing that I've always
And
enjoyed for me
OEM
is
wheels
like,
hold value.
Well, that too.
Yeah.
One of the things about me that I've always enjoyed in regards to this stuff is like just being out and just doing whatever during the day. Like, you know that awesome feeling when you see just like a really cool, just fully stocked fucking car. And maybe it's something you just don't see it that often, or that particular day, like it's just hitting you that the body lines are cool, whatever. When that happens to me with wheels, I love that feeling.
Yeah.
And I love thinking about, so I cannot fucking remember what year model, but back when the Toyota RAV4 was kind of small, they have this crazy fucking, and I think it's small too. It's like a 15 or a 16, I think. It's literally like a circle with a big fat fucking triangle in it.
What the fuck?
And it's super cool. And it's a fucking little tiny body RAV4 wheel. I don't know a bolt pattern off the top of my head, but the point is, little shit like that, when I saw that, and I was like, that is the weirdest fucking...
Right.
If I bought a set of those off fucking Craigslist, if I've got $1,000, and I bought a set of those off fucking Craigslist for $400 because they're old, off a fucking RAV4 that nobody gives a shit about,
Right.
and then got them like powder coated.
I was gonna say, dude, it's not expensive to refinish a
It's
wheel,
not.
or just clean it and make it look nicer. Like,
But I will say this. I'll say this right now. Listen to Liam more than me because he's more up to speed with this stuff for reasons aforementioned. But one thing that I was never introduced to until much later on that I feel like a lot of newer people have the same issue, especially if they're kind of like in their space, community, whatever the hell, they're one of the few that are into this kind of stuff. Refinishing old wheels that you can get for cheaper because they're not in great shape
yeah,
is a really effective way to do this.
yeah,
And it's very doable.
right.
It's a very doable thing.
And for me, because we are talking about show cars, we are talking about cars that are built to be aesthetically pleasing. And like me and Matt have mentioned, in this aspect, your car is an extension of who you are. It's a subjective thing. It's art. You are creating something that is expressive of you, right? And that's why I think that, if you don't have much money to spend, just think creatively.
Exactly.
Just come up with something else that's different. It's out the box.
For me,
because then you stand out from other people and you're expressing yourself.
For me, if you're doing that, you're winning.
Exactly. And
if you are doing that, I'm gonna spend a little bit of extra time looking at your car. And I mean, if you're around, I'm gonna ask you about it.
Right. And where this ties in with fake wheels is that it's become really accessible. It's really accessible for you to go out.
It's effort, Liam.
Yeah, no, it is effort.
It's
and
lack
I think,
of effort.
Right.
Just like,
I
it's
think
like
that there
everything
should
else.
Be, there should be with show cars, there should be effort 100% all the time, at least thought, some kind of creativity, whatever, because it's an expression. But with fake wheels, in terms of shows and stuff, it's too accessible for you to throw whatever together. And dude, I couldn't tell you how many times I've seen the same exact sets of ESRs. It's the ones that look like a Blitz 03 and they have fake hardware on them. They just literally have fake rivets that are glued on there. It's the same set of ESRs. I've seen this set of wheels so many goddamn times, and I totally understand why somebody who doesn't know any better buys this wheel, because it looks like it's a 3-piece wheel and it looks kind of like it's a Blitz 03. And granted, if it wasn't from such a shitty skeeving company, I would be okay with that wheel. It looks good on certain cars. And if you're very much just somebody who buys a car,
I would be so scared to run a really thin split 5-spoke
oh
wheel.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. The quality thing is definitely
I'm just saying in general, I would look at that and be like, ugh.
But I understand why people buy into it. I just think that there needs to be a separation. When we're talking about car shows are something where it is a platform where we are displaying cars. We are showing off cars that are top of the top. These are the cars that people should look up to. And if you can go out and buy this same exact wheel that is literally a fake of another wheel. It's not even a 3-piece wheel. It's just pretending to be something else. I think that there needs to be a separation there for me because
I think the point that you were getting at is like it makes sense. It makes sense why people are doing that.
Okay, I know where I was going now.
Continue.
So if you're somebody who just enjoys cars and you really just want a cool car, you drive to and from school, to and from work, whatever, go out and buy those wheels if you want to. But there has to be a difference between if you are building a show car and you are building a car for you to just enjoy.
Just don't think you're hot shit.
Yeah,
basically.
I don't think that the random daily driver that you just slaps cheap parts on because you don't care that much about it and it's just a daily driver, those are fine excuses if it's not a show car. Mm-hmm. That car doesn't need to be at a show. If you're not working hard and building something that is a show car, I don't think it needs to be at a show. And I think that you can build a daily that can also be a show car. I've done it. My LS in its previous setup, which granted it's been to one car show in its life, it was more of a daily, but that car, I mean, I'm not going to say it was super clean. It was definitely rough around the edges, but, I was building that as more of a show car. And so I was not going to sacrifice on certain things like wheels, which is kind of a big part of building a show car, is that the wheels get attention. And when we're talking about stance stuff, we're talking about fitment, everything's dialed in. The wheels play a big part in that. And if that is the part where you gave the least amount of thought in the build, what does that say about you? What does that reflect on you and your personality?
Man, we got a lot of circle backs going on.
We did.
We only have 2 episodes before this, and we got hella circle backs going on right now.
Okay, I need to actually read off some more of these things, because otherwise it's just going to sound like it's all our own perspectives, which I've read through all of these, and I'm taking tidbits from each thing and putting it in there, so I'm not directly quoting all of them. I apologize. Here's another one that my friend Lane actually sent to me, which I think is pretty good. He said, the actual and literal definition of rep wheels or replica, anything in my opinion would be copied/replicated designs or products and goes beyond branding and money spent. So yes, there are some real wheel brands that have stolen other companies' designs and have rep wheels in their model lineup, aka BBS LM, Work VSXX. They're very similar, But as a community, how do we decide what's right and what's wrong? Do we only focus on the kids with ESRs/JNCs like most, or do we use the rep wheels label for what it actually means and do our homework? Which this comes back to my point on replica wheels as a term with negative and positive connotation versus fake wheels. I think if we're going to talk negative connotation, we should use the term fake. And he said, or do we simply leave people alone and let them be happy? I agree we should leave people alone and let them be happy unless we're just allowing people to come into car shows.
What I'm thinking when you say that is it's kind of like the internet rule. You can do whatever you want with your car.
Yeah.
But the minute you post it on the internet and present it like something to be looked at,
right,
get ready to hear what people have to say because you put it there. So,
and I'm not saying we should judge people's cars.
No. What I'm saying is based on what you were just talking about. How I just tried to itch my ear through my headphone. Nice. What I'm saying is what you were just talking about is like, well, or should we let people be happy and do whatever?
Right.
Absolutely, I think that we should.
Yeah.
Right. But there's a cause and there's effect. Mm-hmm. The cause is you start to think just, man, my car's super cool, this and that. Great. I'm glad you like your car. I'm glad you think so. Now, understand that the minute that you put that car like purposely on the internet, like, and like go out of your way to like get it in front of a lot of people.
Which applies to car shows too. Putting it in a car show.
Exactly.
Right.
That's the other thing. Once you do that, your happiness is in jeopardy, as it were, and you did that. Nobody did that to you.
Which
you pushed it out. And so positive or negative feedback doesn't matter. Just realize that nobody's coming after you
if you're not pretending to be something that you're not.
To be
exactly. Like if your car is your daily driver, you just want it to look cool and you want to enjoy it, then nobody can really come at you and be like, oh man, stop pretending that thing's sick. It's not. Because you're not putting it out.
I was going to say, in that situation, if somebody just walks up to you in a parking lot, it's like, bro, your car's a piece of shit. They're a dickhead.
Well, yeah, of course.
Like, if you weren't, like, trying to draw attention or something, whatever. But that's what I'm saying is it's like maybe the internet part is only like works in my head. But my point is if you're walking around like you're big dick Jimmy about your car, people are either...
your car better be big dick Jimmy.
That's what I'm saying. That's
right.
exactly what I'm saying. So it's like, I absolutely, with the idea, should we just leave people alone and let them be happy? Yeah, absolutely we should. But
it's however they're presenting
it is their decision. If they want to try and have big dick Jimmy energy, but their car is not big dick Jimmy, that's not us not letting them be happy. That's us giving them our feedback when they're indirectly asking for it.
Oh, 100%. I think, if you take your car to a car show, as much as I don't want to say this, I think that, you're kind of indirectly asking for people's opinions on your car. And I don't really care from my perspective personally. That's why I don't really have that much interest in taking my car to shows. I said this all weekend. I was like, dude, honestly, I just want to take my car and like drive it around the city, but not take it to the show. But I have to take it to the show because it helps my business. For me, I just love my fucking car. And my car is built to be a show car, too.
Well, the other thing, too, that drawing from my own experience, like, there were, with my RSX was the one that went through, like, the most phases. Like, I kind of, like, grew up with that car, basically, in doing this stuff, right? And there were definitely points in, like, the transitionary periods where I would go to shows. I would go to CNO. I would go to, like, Vintage Class. I would just go to all of the different Atlanta shows.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Vintage Class, I couldn't go in there anyway. The car was too new. But, like, CNO and shit, just really accessible open entry type shit.
Yeah.
I would park that shit in the parking lot across the street.
Right.
Not because I'm ashamed of it. Not anything like that. It's not at a place where I want to get people's feedback at that time.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like, just for me as an individual, that was always I would rather just park it on the other side of the street, just leave it alone, and then like once I get it squared away and where I want it, then I park that shit in the meat.
Yeah, yeah. No,
because at that point,
that.
I'm putting my best foot forward, right? But it's like, for me, that almost is like easier and preferable than to like, if you're in a transitionary period where your car is just, for whatever reason, just kind of like a wreck, or it just looks very unfinished or whatever, and if you're having to walk up and feel like, even seeing people look at you, that you feel like you have to like, well, it's, I'm not.
I don't have the money to do this.
It's like, just, bro.
Don't have it there.
Just don't bring it. Just park on the other side of the street.
Yeah. Just
walk over, and then, like, when the day comes up where it's squared away and it's where you want it to be, then go be Big Dick Jimmy, bro.
Okay, so this is another good perspective. And there was a little bit more to this, but I want to read this part specifically. And this is somebody that has a rep wheel, and he says that, he used it because it's cheap. He autocrosses his car, and he wanted something that was, had decent offset. And
that would be so scary.
I know, but I don't want to touch on quality stuff because we're talking about show cars and not like functionable cars. There's a whole nother argument for functionable cars.
Okay,
and rep
I'll
wheels.
just say the two things, then I'll leave it alone. Because technically, you mentioned at the beginning, so we go back to it. But I
okay, well, yeah, we can get back to it at some point.
Track cars and drift cars. Mm-hmm. Drift cars, I can understand a little bit more. Mm-hmm. If you are pushing your car to its limits, please don't do that on.
No, don't cheap
fake
out
wheels.
And stuff like that.
Like, you're literally, that becomes like a safety issue.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes.
Like, I don't know how many people listening to this have seen all of the the photos of like fake wheel failures.
Mm-hmm. It's a little scary.
Dude. Well, I don't care if you have to stay with OEM wheels.
There is another part of this that I want to get onto in a minute after I do this, related to quality.
Bet.
But this person, like, obviously, like they said, they have rep wheels, right? But they said this. They said, I completely understand the argument behind reps at shows if the wheels are the centerpiece of the build. But I wouldn't be mad seeing reps at a show if the build is respectable in other areas. Now, I somewhat agree with that and somewhat.
It's like 50-50.
Yeah, because 100%, there's been a bunch of cars that I've walked up to, and they have like a lot of really cool, interesting details, and I can tell that, they put time and effort into these things. And the majority of the time that I come across those builds and the wheels are not the centerpiece, they're not on rep wheels. They're just on a very simple wheel. Like they'll have like a cast rotiform wheel, which for me, that's not a fake wheel. I think Rotiform is a reputable brand, and I think that some of their one-piece cast wheels are original designs, or like some of them are fairly close to others, but I think that they've done a good job of separating, a cast wheel having to be a fake wheel and something that is original, but it doesn't break the bank. Mm-hmm. And, I've seen, especially in the Volkswagen scene, this is super common. They put most of their time and effort and money into, clean bodywork, paint, engine bay tucks, clean interior stuff, and then they don't do crazy wheels because they don't need to. Right. The rest of the car speaks for it. It's not often that I see a car where the attention to detail is in everything else, and then it's on a set of like fake 3-piece wheels, like as in they're 1-piece wheels with fake hardware. And you know why? It's because somebody who's prepared to put in that much time and effort into paying attention to those other things, there's not a chance that they would go out of their way to buy a fake wheel. They just wouldn't. Yeah. Because they are research and knowledgeable enough, because they have that experience in doing everything else on the car, right, that they would do something else. And so I don't want anybody to get that confused where like a 1-piece rotiform wheel or something like that is a fake wheel. People will be saying like Kansai wheels are fake. I think that's bullshit, because Kansai wheels are owned by, I think it's Chris Sempek. He's an enthusiast. He's a super down-to-earth dude that is putting on for the community. Dude, they send wheels out to people all the time. Like they do hella sponsorships. I think they sponsor like tons of events. They're good people in my eyes. And those wheels, I've never seen any issues with them. I've never seen anybody be like,
Liam's over here trying to get spares right now.
No,
I'm just kidding.
Not even at all. They don't make any wheels in my size. I just think as a company, like I think that they're doing it right. And I hear people, I'm trying to stick up for them. I hear people call Kansai out and be like, yeah, they're fake wheels. I think people are just pissed that they found a way to make cheaper wheels that are cool styling that may be replicas of, because they have those R34 looking wheels.
Yeah. No, R33.
Yeah, whatever they are. Like people just.
I guess they have both actually. Never mind.
They do have wheels that are similar styles to other ones, but I think as a brand, as a business, they're doing things that are good for the community. Right. So like, what are we mad about? Well, that's like
the important distinction.
Yeah, they make a quality product, at least as far as I know, for a good price, and they help support the community. That's a business you can get behind. Right. Why would you want to support a company like ESR that does nothing for the community?
The repost page of wheel companies.
Which, okay, yes, I know that they make 3-piece wheels now, blah, blah, blah.
I mean, but how high quality are those 3-piece wheels going to be, really?
No, from what I've heard, they're good. And I've seen some designs that I actually think are good, but I don't understand as a business why they still make a fake 1-piece wheel. They make a 1-piece wheel that has fake hardware.
Oh, so you think they're like possibly transitioning into like being a little better?
They're transitioning, but it just doesn't make any sense, because it seems like they're ruining their own business model by selling a 3-piece wheel when they also sell a wheel that literally hurts the sales of the 3-piece wheel. ESR as a company, I've just never really cared for all that much, and I'm sure somebody from ESR or somebody who runs ESRs will try and defend them from this. That's whatever. If somebody wants to reach out and actually have the conversation and enlighten me on what they do for the community, I'd be open to it. But yeah, moving on. This is really short. Somebody just said rep wheels are annoying. The people who only complain about rep wheels nonstop are more annoying. Valid point, honestly. This goes to like the person that went to the show and listed off every single car that was on reps. Those people definitely have some other psychological issues going on.
I was going to say, those
like
people
they're
all
definitely
have
very. I mean, prime example. If this kid who went to Myrtle Beach got turned away from the show because he didn't have his wheels on, it makes sense that he would then go in there salty and list off all the cars on reps.
The people that
usually
do that all have one thing in common, is that they're really upset about something that has nothing to do with cars.
Yeah, usually. So yeah, that's definitely a valid point. Like there are a lot of people that just go out of their way to complain about replica wheel stuff, and that in itself can sometimes be more toxic than just the replica wheel thing. We need to stop saying replica wheel, just fake wheels. Sorry. Wheels. Fuck, it's really hard to like.
Well, I'll tell you exactly why it's so hard.
It's because
like stigma. Rep is just a buzzword.
Yeah.
Like, so we're all used to saying that.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
I'm not going to give you shit for that. First of all, because I've been doing the same thing the whole time, but I realize as we're going on that I always want to say rep just because that's what I've been saying forever.
Yeah. So this is a tweet that I saw. This was not something that somebody sent to me, and it wasn't specific to wheels or that situation. I just saw it and thought that it was, relatable. But it says, quality over quantity. I'd rather meet up with friends on a Saturday night seeing a handful of top-notch builds I've seen 1,000,000 times than go to a show with a bunch of trash. It's crazy some people can't comprehend what a car show is supposed to be and consist of. I mean, I would say that that's fairly valid. I would rather see the same top-tier cars over and over again than see like a bunch of new kind of thrown together shitty cars. Because I don't care for any of those.
I guess technically I can't speak for anybody else, but growing up in like the Atlanta car scene, there are two very specific parts of any modified car shows. At least like kind of stancy JDM kind of stuff. You do see basically the same cars over and over again.
Yeah.
But the ones that you're spending time looking at are so good.
Every time you
just
see
like
it.
that, you don't give a shit.
Yeah.
If it's like the 20th time
You just
you've seen
appreciate
it,
seeing it
like,
because it's that good.
That's fucking cool.
Right.
So it's like
cars
even if
should
you
have that effect, honestly. Cars should have that effect where you could see the same car 1,000,000 times over and you're just as excited to see it every time.
Yeah.
That's when you know you have a good car.
I agree.
Honestly.
I totally agree. And like the other thing is too, that we will always circle back to attention to detail, but like especially when the owner of that car is constantly doing little here, little there, little
Right,
whatever.
little
So it's like
changes,
every time
evolving.
you see it, there's something. So
Okay,
anyway.
so I want to come back to that thing that I was talking about with quality before I get distracted on something else.
Okay.
So you were saying about, rep or fake wheels being of shittier quality. It is true. I think that is true in some cases, and, I can't confirm validity on every fucking company and every wheel, but here's where some people actually get confused with that, and there's like a counter argument where people say, well, I've had more issues with three-piece wheels, and, I crack barrels all the time on three-piece wheels. The market for three-piece wheels right now is crazy because there is a lot of companies out there that literally outsource everything to China, and they make it as cheap as possible. It is not tested for the application that it is going on, and I have seen so many three-piece wheels break. Whether it's shitty lips and barrel supplies, cracking barrels is going to happen. If you have crazy amounts of camber, you're static, blah, blah, blah. It's going to happen. So I don't think that that's a thing. And obviously one of the pros of having a multi-piece wheel is that when you crack the barrel, you take that part off and replace it instead of the entire wheel. I'm talking about faces on some of these wheels breaking because they are not stress tested for the application. And these companies are doing things as cheap as possible to maximize profits.
Just clarify. Are we talking about fake wheels or three-piece?
No, I'm
now?
talking about genuine three-piece wheels. And I'm not going to name any names because I would definitely upset some people if I listed some companies. And these are companies that have reputations.
Okay.
But this
is all news to me. So
there are three-piece wheel companies, and somebody out there listening to this 100% has snapped a three-piece wheel. There are some shitty three-piece wheel companies out there. I genuinely believe that. And so I can see the counter-argument where people come in and they're like, well, the quality thing doesn't even matter. I had so-and-so, three-piece wheel and it still broke. There is a market for shitty three-piece wheels that they charge as much as some of the good ones. Right. And so I think when you're picking, a three-piece wheel, do your fucking research. Like, pick a company that's been around for a long time and has a reputation, and also stress test the fuck out of everything. For example, this VIP modular is right behind me, and yes, this is kind of biased because I work with them, but this is genuine. They do this. This wheel was specifically designed for my car. In CAD software and whatever stuff they use, I'm not knowledgeable on this. They stress test everything. That wheel is designed to go on my car with the amount of camber my car has. I know that that's not going to break. Lots of other companies that are just trying to maximize their margins are not taking that extra step. They are coming up with designs that look cool and may not be structurally safe, and they assume that because they're going on show cars that aren't going to be pushed to the limits, that they're not going to break. And what do you know? Sometimes it happens. They break. And so, the argument that people have is kind of a little, washed out with the whole, just fake wheels are of shitty quality, because some three-piece wheels are shit quality.
What I thought about as you were saying that, man, I'm sorry, y'all. What I thought about as you were saying that, is one thing that I learned over time in paying attention to like pages about like older, like a lot of like the Tiny Wheels pages really, but like even just like extensions from that, these older Japanese companies outside of like Work and SSR and stuff like that, like they have made a lot more wheel designs than a lot of people realize, because so many of us have only been exposed to like, you know, the box of like popular wheels made by those manufacturers.
Yeah.
And they're popular because they're great, which I mean, you know, is all fine and good, but like there are so many like Work, specifically for me, Work wheels that I've just like stumbled upon on the internet. Where I'm just like, what the fuck? I have never seen those before.
Right, like old wheels that were discontinued or whatever?
You could, I mean, even if you have to like refurbish them.
Yeah.
I would rather buy, you know, I would rather put in the effort and just like, even if you just have a passive eye out for some wheels that fit the description that I'm talking about, where you see them and you're like, what the fuck? Those are awesome, but I've never seen those. Holy shit, they're Work wheels, but they look like shit. Like, I need to get them refurbished. Do it. You could, before you, I mean, you could easily end up being the only one in your fucking state, area, whatever the fuck, running those wheels. And people be like, yo, where did you get that? What are those?
I custom built them because
you know what I mean? And it's
I thought out of the box. Like, do that.
And again, I just use Work as an example. There are a lot of like old school, like been around since the 70s, 80s Japanese companies that have been doing this. Back then, where they were, you can be sure that they were not outsourcing this stuff to other places for lower prices.
Yeah.
So, one really quick thing that I'd like to point out that we probably would not have otherwise touched on, because you're not really into like the motorsport type stuff.
I mean, I am. I'm just not so heavily like researched. Like, that's your thing that you're into. I'm into stunt stuff.
My thing, I'm trying to like run through all my the wheels that I've had really quick. So I had replica wheels on my Crown Majesta because they came with the car, and I thought they looked perfectly fine, and I could not afford to get the wheels that I really wanted. So just in case anybody deep dives, well, he had a rep wheel. Yes, I did. I had rep wheels on my Crown Majesta. But on my other, tapping the table again.
Well, those wheels that were on the Majesta were
right.
They were they were like fabulous.
Yeah,
reps,
they were fabulous,
which is already
reps.
A wheel that doesn't actually get replicated very often. And I believe the company that had done the replication was in Japan. So to some people that may make it cool and acceptable, but for both of us, it probably applies the same way. But your reasoning for not changing them is totally valid. They came on the car.
I liked them, but the other thing that I realized is if they were like, they were good enough quality where when one of them got scratched up and I wanted to get that particular one refinished, they were like, oh, they said, I don't remember, it was fucking diamond etched or some bullshit, but it was like some really, really fine finishing
like diamond cut
method. Diamond cut, that's what it was.
Yeah, so it's like a silver face, black window, or the other way around.
Black window? What the fuck are you talking about?
Or it could be black, just whatever. Like polished versus like machined type thing, and it's got a hard cut against it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And they were like, yeah, well, we can't. Anyhow, I have had one-piece sport wheels on basically all of my other cars. I had Sparco Terras, which for anybody that knows what those are, like they're Sparco wheels, and Sparco's not bad. But those were actually OZ Racing wheels.
Like Sparco makes seats, right?
Yeah.
The same company?
Yeah.
Okay. So they were built by OZ?
Okay. The wheels were marketed as Sparcos.
Yeah.
But it was literally stamped OZ.
Yeah.
Which I thought was super cool because it just surprised shit at me. And then my Impreza, I had Enki RCG4s rally gravel wheels. Mm-hmm. They were one-piece Enki gravel wheels.
Dude, this is actually a good point.
And then on my RSX, right when Koenig like decided to join this decade and stop making like really wacky
Stop hitting the table, Matt.
and stopped making like really wacky like Spocom wheels. I got that was the set I had on my, I don't remember like the fucking, entagrams.
Yeah.
And so the point of me saying all of this is all of those were one-piece sport wheels.
Yeah.
And I was perfectly happy with them.
Yeah.
A lot of motorsport wheels are one or two piece for obvious reasons, really, because that's less stuff
Right. Well, okay.
to break and it's more structurally sound.
A lot of the one-piece wheels are designed to be super lightweight, and so they have to be built to like rigorous standards. But some of them are built to crazy standards to be on race cars. And if you take a sport wheel or a race car wheel that's one piece in construction and meant to be as light as possible, and you do stancy things with it, it's not going to hold up the same.
Because it's going to put all of that
right. It's going to have stresses on it
spot,
that's not designed to have. But all that to say, like, there's a lot of really, really cool one-piece options out there that aren't crazy expensive. But, I mean, any forged wheel, you're going to pay for it. That's just how it is. But there's tons of one-piece wheels out there that are from reputable companies that are built well, and they look fantastic, and they're not crazy, crazy expensive. And you don't have to have a three-piece wheel to be cool.
Which is ultimately that mine kind of sounded like a tangent, but I think that's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
Is I've gotten a lot of satisfaction and a lot of fulfillment,
Right.
and I've never had three-piece wheels.
Exactly. And I think that that's way too much of a stigma, and I think that that's why some of those fake wheels, the ones that are one-piece and they have the fake hardware to make them look like they're three-piece, you don't need those.
Like my Fabulous reps did.
Yeah, but, you guys don't need to have a three-piece wheel to be considered cool. Like I was saying, there are so many cars that I've seen crazy amounts of details in, and then they're just on some cast rotiforms. And they catch my attention, dude. There was a black IS 300 that was at this show in Myrtle. I guarantee 90% of the people that were in this show didn't take a second look at it. It was one of my top cars. And that, that's saying something, because there's like 300 something cars in there. There's a lot of like pretty cool stancy ones. And generally that's where I go to. Something about this car caught my attention. I looked it over in good detail. I believe it was a 1 or a 2J. It had a turbo because I heard it fucking leave and sounded fantastic. It had one-piece wheels on it. I can't remember what they were. I did look in detail, but I was focused on taking a picture of it with my phone, so I apologize that I didn't look in enough detail.
I looked at it for 10 minutes straight. I have no idea what the wheels
No,
are.
it wasn't 10 minutes. I was just kind of roughly walking around, but this thing caught my attention. And it, it had big brakes on it. It was clearly set up to be a usable car. It was just very simple, and it was super clean. It had, the Altezza, bumpers on it, or like the lip kit or whatever. It was manual. It just a really clean car. Like Mason's Sport Cross. It was like that, but not bagged, and with a one-piece, like really simple, probably like, I don't know, fucking split 5-spoke design wheel or something. Just really clean, functional
cool.
car. Yeah, it looked great. Actually, I have a picture of it. I will pull it up because this gives better perspective.
While he's pulling that up, I'm just going to ask you really quick. Do you still want to do a Q&A?
Maybe not, because we're like...
I guess since we're like...
Look at that car.
Oh, shit. That is sweet.
Explain to the viewers what you're seeing on there.
Well, I want to like compare it to Mason's, but...
Well, put your mouth to the microphone.
It's... like you said, it's split 5-spoke that look like these BBSs that I don't know the name of, but I don't think that's what they are because they're more concave. But
BBS CHs maybe?
Perhaps. I have no idea.
Oh no, it's a very simple wheel.
I mean, it's just it's a really clean car.
It's got a turbo setup.
It's really cohesive in that's just
it's got good functional fitment.
It flows. It's functional.
Granted, it's not a show car,
but
per se, but it's a clean car.
It doesn't have a lot going on.
And it garners the same respect.
The way that it's set up doesn't have to.
Right.
And that is the point for me. That's how I've styled all of my personal cars.
Yeah.
The Crown was probably... The Majesta was probably the most, like, flashy car that I've ever owned. And I didn't even, like... You know what I mean? I didn't even, like, aim for that.
Yeah.
That car, even if it was totally stock... At least for the people that realized that it was not an LS400.
Right.
Like, that car has enough presence on his own. Yeah. Completely stock. So...
Oh, no, I agree.
It's like... But all of the rest of my cars, that's how I set them up. I set them up just to be like... If if somebody saw my car in a parking lot and they're into like modified cars, they'd probably like take a look at it. But if you have it next to all of these other like
high-end show cars,
high-end, really flashy, whatever, is kind of like, you know, maybe people will want to be like, oh, that's kind of neat. And then you just keep walking. I'm like,
but here's the thing.
Made me happy.
You never put it in a show, and that's the difference. You never tried to put that car in a show, and that's the difference.
Well, the Majesta was in Stance Nation, Atlanta, but that's
Hey, that sounds like
neither here nor there, yeah. Well, I mean, it was the only Crown Majesta on the show, so. I mean,
well, no. Also, that is one of those things where the chassis itself garners, enough respect on its own. But okay, we're at a good point right now where I feel like we can somewhat summarize. Like I said, I didn't go through and directly quote everything. I read through all of these messages that I was sent beforehand, and I'm kind of taking little bits from each of them and applying them in, and making the counterpoints for certain things. And I think going back to where we started with the definition thing, saying about rep wheels, the difference between negative and positive, I think that plays a big part in how you perceive this stuff. And as a whole, if we switch over to the wet wheels, if we switch to the wet wheels, if we switch to using the term fake wheels, I think that applies better for talking about the negative stuff. Because that's the majority of what this conversation is, and why it's such a thing is because everybody's up in arms on either side. Mm-hmm. And so applying the fake wheels term, then we know that we're specifically talking about negatives. Because otherwise, if you just use rep wheels, then people try to, obviously justify and say that, oh, well, this wheel's a rep wheel, but it's not like a bad quality wheel. Right, right. So the fake wheels thing is kind of a better way to encompass the negatives of the rep wheels argument. And just kind of, some of the things that we've covered. If your car is your car and it is literally just like you're enjoying it, you're doing whatever you want to do with it, and you just drive it around and have fun with it, you maybe post pictures of it, whatever, and you just like enjoying your car, then absolutely do your thing. Absolutely, like, enjoy your car. Don't let anybody tell you that, the wheels that you have on it are wrong, or that you need to. Obviously, at the end of the day, you do not need to conform to any social constructs. But
however, if you're going to be Big Dick Jimmy, you need to be ready for people to share how they feel about your car. And if you're pushing it out there for the purpose of opening it up to feedback, then don't be upset when people give you feedback.
Absolutely. And it kind of cancels out the argument of like the social construct thing. If you're building your car in a certain way where you are acting like you're Big Dick Jimmy, as you say.
Why are you going to hit him like you've been...
I don't fucking know, dude. Because I'm trying to avoid it being like, hey, this is exactly what I said, type of thing.
I'm just fucking with you guys.
But, like, if...
Big Dick Jimmy, you can quote me on that.
If you are already putting your shit out there like that, or you're building your car to, like, be like that, you're already invalidating even the argument of conforming to social constructs, because you're already accepting that is the social construct and you're building your car that way. Mm-hmm. And so you can't really argue against that. But yeah, I think that if you just want to enjoy your car, put whatever wheels you want on it. If it makes you happy, and that's all that matters. If you are entering your car into shows, I think that there should be some kind of a standard. And I think people are probably going to disagree with me, but like we kind of said, the reasons that we think that is because, on the whole, we want to improve the community. We want to help people grow, and I think that the only way that we evolve as a community is if the younger generation that are coming into this have something to aspire to. And if what they're aspiring to is all lower quality, is all stuff that we just accept, we accept mediocrity, as the guy said. If we just accept that as it is and allow it to continue, then it really doesn't give a whole lot for the younger generation to aspire to. Well, if that's all that's there for them, then what do you think is going to continue happening?
I'll dumb it down even further as far as like giving them something to aspire to. I'll just say trying to educate.
Oh, well, yeah,
really?
That too.
I mean, because like...
Yeah, no, we've definitely said that in other episodes. Don't attack people.
Yeah, you don't...
Use it as a point of education.
That's the thing, man, is honestly, I've never experienced it myself, but I've certainly seen it happen in front of me, both with my friends and just random ass people on the internet. When you choose to approach somebody that even maybe they themselves are being like aggressively ignorant.
Yeah.
But you choose to approach them from the standpoint of like, let me educate you real quick in like a nice, constructive way, and you're either going to go for it or you're not. I have literally seen like those little weird microcosms where there's like, you watch somebody make a comment in a really aggressive, shitty way, and then there's like a dialogue, and then like by the end, they both have like the handshake emoji. It's like, all right, bro, you have a good day, man. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Well, okay, so obviously, like, don't go out of your way to just like go up to people's cars and just be like, dude, get rid of those wheels. But here's the thing that I always try to do, like, because I get into conversations with people all of the time, and a lot of people that are a part of my audience are the demographic that have fake wheels. And so I quite often, I'm talking to someone and they'll be like, oh, they'll show me pictures of their car, or we'll be looking at their car and talking about it.
Are those fake wheels?
No, and I'm never a fucking asshole about it, but I do always like make a point to just be like, I'll be honest with you, I'm not a huge fan of the wheels, but here's like, if it was me, this is probably the way I would have approached it. And thankfully, because there's somebody who's already, involved with me, they already like the stuff that I do, they're usually fairly receptive to it. They're not getting upset, and that's good because I'm never attacking somebody about it. I'm just, using it as a point to be like, hey, this would be really cool if you did this. And I kind of throw some ideas around, and thankfully my audience is pretty receptive to it. And I think that if we can find a way that everybody can do that, like if you have a car and you have a following for your car and people come up to you and they're like, hey, I love your car, you get in a conversation with them, and then you go look at their car, instead of either avoiding the subject or not talking about it, or the polar opposite, calling them out for having shitty wheels, just be like, yeah, man, I like what you're doing with it, blah, blah, blah. Personally, not a fan of the wheels, but this is the direction that I would go with it. And a lot of people don't want to do that because their ego won't allow them to share the secrets of their ideas or whatever. But, just finding a way to like help people is really key, because, if you act like an asshole to people, how do you think they're going to act back? Nobody's going to be receptive if you're being a dick to them. And so to go out and go to a car show that you paid to be at, and you walked around and pointed out all of the flaws on people's cars, that says a lot about you. And clearly you're going through some shit that you need to figure out. But like, don't do that shit. There's just no need for it. And granted, I've had plenty of times where I've, been recording a vlog and seen a car.
I've literally been right next to him when he did it.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, fuck, it's on ESRs. Can't put that in the vlog now. And then I put it in there just because it's kind of funny. Like, those things happen, and yes, maybe I've been a dick about it sometimes, but like
that
I'm
one
trying
time.
to, yeah. But I'm pretty sure like the owner of that car reached out to me. And
I guess you did tell me that, right? Yeah. I remember that.
And like
now.
I spoke to him again. I was like, dude, I actually love the car. Like to give you guys perspective, this was an E36 that was a meet local to us. And I thought it was really cool. It had that like BN style. I think it's the click tuning kit on it, but it's like a BN style kit for the E36. It was a vert. It was silver. Car looked really cool. Like it had this really like kind of nice street style to it. I wouldn't go as far to say it's like a show car, but I walked up to it and I was like, dude, this thing's really cool. And I was filming it, and then I realized that it had ESRs on it. And it's just, my personal thing with the ESRs. I was like, oh, great. It's on fucking ESRs. I can't put it in the video anymore. And I left it in the video because I thought that was funny. And, the guy like reached out to me, or at least one of his friends did or something. And I was like, dude, I think the car is really sick. I really do. And so my perspective on that would just be if you went and bought a different wheel, maybe a BMW OEM wheel, or an OEM wheel from a Japanese company and did adapters, like you could do something super cool with it for the same price. And OEM wheels are going to hold their value better than any rep wheel.
You can do a lot of really cool shit with a lot of really cool wheels.
It just
for
takes
less money than buying a set of reps. Just put in the effort and do a little research.
Yeah, it literally takes just that little bit of creativity.
Do a little bit of research.
And honestly, guys, just be smart, because you got to think like the amount of money that you could spend on buying a brand new set of wheels that nobody will want after you own them. That doesn't help you get, like, if your perspective is that, you're buying these wheels now because it's all you can afford, you should maybe think about some other things. Because if you already have it in the back of your mind that you're going to progress onto something else, buy something that's going to help you get there. buy an old set of, used wheels that look cool, or like an OEM wheel, because both of those will hold their value so much better. If you go and spend $1,000 on a set of wheels, and the moment that you mount tires on them, they're worth $300.
You're
okay,
fucking yourself. First
you're
of
literally
all.
you're literally out $700. Whereas if you bought a set of OEM wheels for $1,000, guaranteed, unless you fuck them up, they're probably still going to be worth the same amount of money, unless you got ripped off. Same thing with an old set of 3-piece wheels. Granted, you'll spend a little bit more than $1,000, but you could run those wheels for the time being, clean them up a little bit, polish them, take care of them, refinish the faces, blah, blah, blah. But 9 times out of 10, you're either going to sell them for the same price or maybe even a little bit more. It's not that often that you lose money on those wheels because they're collectible items.
The point is, there are other options, and all you have to do to get access to them is put in a little bit more effort.
And if you're trying to work towards a better goal that you can't afford yet, surely you'd want to make the smart decision to buy something that you can use for the time being. And then when you do have more money saved up, you can sell those wheels and have the money to buy the thing that you want. Why would you want to lose a bunch of money on something that ultimately just makes you look like you didn't know what you were doing? You know?
Mm-hmm.
But, all right. We have talked about a lot of things in this, and I really enjoyed this episode.
I did too. This off the dome. This was pretty solid.
This was fun. Like, we really freestyled this. I didn't get much sleep over the weekend, and I got like an hour of sleep last night. Got on a flight first thing this morning at 6 a.m. I was at the airport at like 4:30. And so I got home, went to bed for like a couple of hours, got up and tried to do some things. I got the worst headache. We're just like, we got to sit down and just do this because now's the right time. We got to put out an episode because we fucked up on last week's episode. So this was like the perfect time to do it.
Y'all didn't hear the other episode, but this is like redemption times 2.
Yes, 100%.
And this is so much better than
the
one
other
that we did.
episode was supposed to be on like our backgrounds. We tried to structure it somewhat, and I think that when we try to structure things too much, it just kind of loses the point of a podcast because the podcast is a conversation. And so with this episode, we really haven't had that much structure. And it may bite us in the ass a little bit because someone will make a counterpoint to something and we didn't cover it. But that's kind of the purpose of us asking you guys to do that. Yeah, we want
the counterpoint.
We
can
want to
address
hear
it
the
later.
points. Yeah.
So.
But yeah, I think we'll probably redo those episodes and find a different way to do it. It may be a 2-part thing where I do an episode talking about my background, Matt does an episode on his background, and that way it's specific to the person and we can kind of tell our stories and not get too into the politics of like, hey, we have to stick to this structure, we have to be done with this subject at this time, because it's just makes it feel too, rigid. And we're really just trying to flow with this. And like we've said from the start, with this podcast, we would be doing this without
regardless.
Me and Matt have these conversations, and so we just felt like this is a great way to open the conversation to everybody else, and hear the things that we have to say. And like with this episode, it's obviously had a lot of input from other people. I think about 60 people send me their perspectives, and a lot of them were very similar, and they were just kind of little points from each of them. So yeah, I kind of collected those together with some of our thoughts and views on this episode. So yeah, we want to hear from you guys. If there is anything that you would like to contribute to this conversation, if there's enough to talk about, maybe we'll do a Reps Wheel Part 2 at some point.
Fake wheels.
Fake wheels. Well, the
I
name,
guess this one was Rep.
I was going to say, yeah, the
Instagram,
name of this episode is going to be Rep Wheels. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. And before we get to the end, we are going to do sleepers.
Cool.
We are going to do sleepers. I already have mine planned out. But
I'm gonna plug my own really quick.
Well, hold on, I ain't getting there. I'm just rounding up the episode first.
Never mind.
I just want to say thank you guys for listening. And as always, please share this with your friends. We're very thankful for the amount of engagement that this has had
It's been
already.
Crazy.
People seem to be kind of just promoting it on their own. I'm not going out there and pushing it too much. I'm putting it out there and be like, yeah, we got an episode of the podcast, we're covering this subject, but it's really rewarding to see so many people that have listened to this and are as excited and passionate about it as we are, that they're just sharing it on their own. I was on the phone to somebody the other week, and they had a phone conversation with somebody who just brought up this awesome new podcast that they were talking or that they were listening to. and it happened to be this podcast. And obviously the person just like pretended like they didn't know about it, but it was really cool to hear that information, that people are just self-promoting this because they really like it. And I think that's how we know that we have something good here. And I hope that continues, and you guys
we're just so thankful for y'all, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, this is awesome.
Three episodes in, and
wow, technically it's only 2 at this point.
Oh yeah,
this is the 3rd episode.
So 2 episodes in, and I mean the response that we've gotten is just.
And, you know, for us,
awesome.
it's not about the numbers. This is not something that we're actively trying to make money off of.
We're just stoked that people care. At least I am.
Yeah, well, because both of us are just really passionate people. We love cars. We love the car community, and we want to do whatever we can to improve it and find ways to make it better for the younger generation, or even, you know, the people that are currently in it. Just protect what is there, what's important about cars and the car scene, and, you know, make it a better thing for people in future. And if it grows into something bigger and we're able to do more with this, that's what we're here for, man. It'd be fucking awesome. So yeah, that being said, we are going to jump into some sleepers. We're going to call them sleepers because this is the point at the end of the episode where we basically just do a little shout out to somebody or a business in the car community that we think is really cool that maybe you don't know about, and you should know about. So, Matt, you want to start us off?
I'm actually going to plug my own account here really quick.
This isn't part of the sleeper, is it?
No.
Okay.
You got
to do that anyway.
Yeah, this is just me plugging my own account at sub.stance.matt. I just made that. It's specifically for this podcast. The only other Instagram account I have is private, and it's private for a reason. So if you've added me on there and I didn't accept you, it's not personal. It just follow my other one. So
yeah, well, so you're using this Substance account to basically just post stuff related to the podcast, and also on your story.
So anything that I'm basically posting on that account, there's daily content, but it's all in my story, and you're basically just getting the shit on Instagram that I find that I think is cool and kind of reflects.
It's like a repost page, but without stealing stuff. It's curated content without stealing, without theft, and just putting you guys on to cool stuff.
Yes.
Essentially is all it is. And all of the accounts that you follow on
is a curated list.
Is a curated list of pages that you think are really sick.
Yes.
So it's definitely a good page to go on there. I don't do the same thing on my stuff because I already have so many accounts. And so the Substance _show account is for, you know, stuff related to the podcast and advertising for that, and then my other accounts are personal to things that I have going on. So it's cool that Matt's doing that, and then you guys can kind of get put onto some cool and interesting things related to this and just some of the stuff that Matt likes.
Yes. So if you are interested in my perspective at all when you listen to this podcast, give me a follow on there. It'd be great. Yeah. Thanks, y'all. And then my sleeper actually is because he's a really good friend of mine, and I'm pretty sure we mentioned him on 3 different occasions during this episode.
We have?
Mason Gavin.
Oh.
And he is, I think it's just at Mason. Yeah, it's just at Mason Gavin, MASONGAVIN. Mason Gavin is a really, really close friend of ours, and for me, arguably he's doing a lot for the car community, not just in Chattanooga, but I would say at the very least just in this region. But Riverside, the show that he puts on,
so good.
If you just go, like just go, please.
The whole reason any of this shit exists, the whole reason those wheels exist, the whole reason my car exists, the whole reason I live
that
here,
me and Liam live in Chattanooga,
the whole reason me and Matt know each other, this podcast even happens, is because of Mason Gavin and Riverside. And we don't need to jump too much into it, but just tell by how excited we are how much that means to us.
Just follow Mason.
Mason's a great dude.
Follow Mason. From there, you will find Riverside. Just do it.
And just also, we're going to have him on for an episode as soon as we can, because he has a lot that he could talk about, and I really want to do some talking about Riverside and let you guys hear, you know, how that happened. I'm excited about that episode, and you guys should be too.
Definitely.
But all right, my sleeper is actually does relate to my weekend in Myrtle Beach, but I'm going to shout out this weekend. Sorry. I'm saying sorry because Canadians. I hung out with a bunch of Canadians in Myrtle Beach, and they happened to be from the company called Boost the North. And specifically, I want to shout out BTN Dave. This guy, okay, like I had never met them. I'd seen a little bit about Boost the North, which, to give you guys some, background on it, Boost the North is a company based in Toronto. At least I think it's in Toronto. I know they're in Canada. And they're like a giveaway company. They make really high quality merchandise. And, it's one of those things where it's every dollar you spend on the website is an entry to win this car. Right now, they're giving away a really badass Evo X, which I actually drove over the weekend, and I can confirm it is bad as fuck. Like, it's sick. But I also want to shout out the personal side of it, because Dave is one of the coolest people I've ever met. And I think that he is one of those people that every single person that meets him has this like really, really just like big impression from it. Like they leave an impression. I witnessed him over the course of the weekend just go up to so many different people and interact with them. And it didn't matter what kind of car they had, who they were. He treated them all the same and was so enthusiastic about whatever they had to say. And I love that. I think that he is awesome. And he's not fake about it too. This guy genuinely just loves talking to people. And sometimes it's a little bit much because he just doesn't stop talking. We had this joke over the weekend, me and Justin, about Dave time, where he's late for things because he is talking to people constantly. But all that to say, he's a really, really good down-to-earth dude, super smart, has his head on his shoulders, and morally, with our business stuff, me and him align very nicely. And I would like to have him on the podcast at some point because I think he has some really good perspectives, especially on business things related to cars, that people would love to hear. And he's one of those people that I think if you met him in person, regardless of what you think about like giveaway companies and stuff like that, you would want to support him. He's one of those people that just like, he just loves this stuff. So yeah, go check out BTN. I think it's btn.dave on Instagram, or just Boost the North. Let me double check that fucking
He's
first
gonna
one. BTN.dave.
Double check that.
Double
you
check
literally
that.
just said
Let me
double check that.
Let me get that double check real quick, boy. Hit that double check. But yeah, no, Dave, great fucking guy. I'm really excited to have him on here, and also we've got some potential business stuff in the pipeline at some point. He's just good dude, man. Go check out Boost the North, and if you want to win an Evo X, go get you some merch. But that's it for the podcast, guys. Thank you guys for listening or watching if you're on YouTube. And if you're on YouTube and you don't care to watch us, go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Give us a listen. Subscribe on any of those. And as always, give us your feedback. We appreciate it.
We want it. We want it really bad.
We want it. And if you have any point of contention throughout this episode at all, let us know. We want to hear. We want to hear your counterpoints or any kind of disagreements.
Just don't be a dick about it.
Well, yeah, of course. There's no reason for it to be an argument, and please leave emotion out of stuff. I mean, you see us get passionate, but we're not. Neither of us are crying about this subject at all.
I mean, I don't know. No, just
Bing bang.
just really quick.
Yeah.
Just from a personal thing for me, like, I appreciate all of y'all so much. Like, if you're interacting with this podcast for however long, whole episodes, little bit of episodes, listening for 2 minutes, and we annoy you, and I appreciate all of y'all. I was telling Liam the other day, I haven't felt this very distinct feeling of being severely excited about something since my brand in the past that will be talked about on a different episode called Not Fast started to gain traction. And for the first time in my life at that point, I felt like something that I was responsible for was really resonating with a lot of people. And
absolutely,
this is feeling a lot like that. So all I can do is say thank you to y'all. Try not to cry. I'm kidding. I'm not going to cry, but thank you. I'm so grateful. I know we both are, and just thank y'all.
We appreciate you guys. We'll be back next Monday. Hopefully, we're not going to fuck up the schedule too much after this, but you never know. Just pay attention to the Instagram, and we appreciate you guys as always. And we'll see you in the next episode on Monday.
You want to tell Joe Biden right now?
What's up, baby? Take me out to dinner.
Hey, yep.
How does he do it?
Take me out there.
Take me out to dinner. How? Man.
Hey, my offer still stands. $5 to anybody that can like imitate / replicate the way that man says dinner.
I'll add to that. We'll make it $10. Anybody who can send us a clip of that and sound exactly like that man, $10. All right. Thanks for listening.
Love you. Bye.